Welcome to this edition of Weather to Watch. We got a big old dome of heat building in, not only into the weekend, but into much of next week as well as summer begins to take over. It is a Wednesday afternoon. Hello, everyone. We have one weather system in the central U.S. that is the last stop before we start getting some hot air building in. And this is actually trying to keep things a little bit cool. It's an upper level system, active showers and thunderstorms, which we'll focus on here in a minute, with both severe storm and heavy rain potential. 500 millibar flow on top of that does show a pretty healthy trough of low pressure for this time of year, stretching through eastern Missouri down, stopping in Mississippi and starting in Minnesota. So this is actually a fairly active weather system for mid-June. And it represents really the last, I think, of these disturbances that will make it this far south here for a while, as a hot air dome is going to build in. This hot air that we'll talk about here in a minute is not going to last forever, but it is going to be rather sizable, and it will affect much of the northeastern U.S. Here's the radar loop late on Wednesday afternoon, and you can see a pretty active squall line, a little curl up at the top of this squall line, a little bookend vortice right here, as referred to in the biz, and we have active showers and thunderstorms, and many of those are severe. Earlier today, we had some tornado reports out here. That's from this activity right here, and that is the main severe weather threat as it's being posted here this afternoon. Now, this is the tornado watch that covers Indiana. Now, these counties are being kept in just because you saw one little cell there. Otherwise, this is usually how this goes. That once the squall line advances past your town, you're probably in the clear. Just pay attention to when they're canceled locally. And this is a severe thunderstorm watch that round things out along that northern end of the squall line up into Michigan and parts of Ohio too. So the 3 out of 5 risk is right where it should be here today. It's been tweaked a little bit. It used to extend a little bit more, this level 3 back this way. But I know here in Springfield, we had a lot of nice westerly, northwesterly flow, dry, stable area here. So this has been pushed slowly away from Missouri. But there still is a severe weather threat that hangs back into the Red River Valley, and another one around the nation's capital up to around Philadelphia as well. Again, the tornado risk is at 10%, pretty high for June, and pretty far south, actually, for June. But it covers all that area of Indiana. Again, if you're behind the squall line, on this side of the squall line, you're going to be okay. But there's still a pretty high probability of tornadoes forming from some of these cells up in Indiana. And the NATOcast does agree with that. Again, the Illinois part actually did kind of verify. Like I said, there were some tornado reports from at least one supercell and a couple of warnings. But again, you can just ignore everything on this side. Just cross that out and pay attention to that 10% risk out ahead of the squall line. Every morning, I issue a severe weather outlooks video that covers the next 7 days and beyond. Actually, the next 3 weeks, we talk about supercells, what might be developing. So if you want more detailed analysis, that comes out after the morning Storm Prediction Center update, which usually it's posted somewhere between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. Got some heavy rain. One pocket here is affecting the Chicago area here, and this is where they're looking at maybe 2 inches an hour at times, with some little flash flooding possible, maybe moving into Michigan later on as this active squall line moves into that area today. And in fact, that is 2 of the areas where there's a heavy rain hazard issued by the government, including Chicago and Lansing and Grand Rapids, and just barely getting into Detroit. Another one there along the Ohio River and into the Boot Heel for active thunderstorms that are forming there. If we look at the next 3 days of the WPC Weather Prediction Center's total forecast for rain, you're seeing 2-3 inch totals there through Michigan, and a little bit of an enhancement there from southern Indiana down into Tennessee, but not as bad. So the rain is kind of shutting off for a while. Again, that high pressure dome that I'll show you here in a minute is kind of taking over. And when that does, it's kind of hard to get active areas of large scale rain. You might get an isolated thunderstorm or two, but a lot of times the more organized rainfall shuts down for a while. So the weather hazards, this is heat. Hazardous heat. This just marches right along, so it just kind of goes from day to day, from the 21st through the 25th, and keeps heading toward the East Coast here. And that stops on the 25th, and then on the 26th and 27th, they're still talking about heat hanging out in the Ohio River Valley, in parts of the Great Lakes states, and getting to the eastern seaboard. The 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook, which starts Tuesday of next week and goes through Saturday, has an extremely high confidence rating that we'll have above normal temperatures in those very same regions we were just talking about. And to start things off, there is an excessive heat watch in effect for all these areas. I couldn't wait any longer. I know the Minneapolis forecast office filled this in, but it just wasn't updating, so I'm just telling you. They're under an extreme heat watch as well, covering just about all of Minnesota, Iowa, getting down into Nebraska, and even almost down into Kansas, but not quite. And if we take the temperatures day by day here, Thursday, the heat really is in the northern Rockies and the northern plains, still below normal temperatures in the wake of that weather system and the severe weather for Thursday. And then we skip ahead to Saturday, 100-degree temperatures start showing up in places like Omaha, Sioux Falls, Rapid City, Goodland, Kansas, all above 100 on Saturday. And you can see it's spreading this way. And this is where that excessive heat advisory is in effect. And then we go to Monday, and this spreads from Chicago into the Northeast with high temperatures well into the 90s, like Philadelphia, 97 degrees on Monday. If we look at Boston, this is the GFS model, so it goes to 93 on Thursday, and then beginning on Tuesday and Wednesday, they really get their heat set in. And just to give you an example of what this looks like, one thing I'll look at here is this is the forecast 500 millibar flow for Sunday, and this is just a heat dome. If you see this advertised on the internet, this is what this is. It's a high pressure system aloft, and generally underneath it gets pretty hot. But the system is progressing to the northeast, and we do have a deep trough developing out over the west. So later on, maybe early next week, we might get some precipitation and severe thunderstorm enhancements up here. But for now, this is really the main story, this hot air dome. 3, 2, 1. We'll go to the tropics. Nothing forecast really for the next 7 days, and really not much until the end of June out in the Atlantic Basin. In the East Pacific Basin, we do have Hurricane Eric, and then here are the next 3 on the list, by the way, if you're wondering. And Eric is actually forecast to make landfall in southern Mexico. Here, this 3 p.m. Wednesday, its current position. This will happen as it weakens tonight. Finally, actually, it's a major hurricane, then it weakens to a tropical storm once it makes landfall. Here's a look at that storm. And oftentimes in this part of the Pacific, these storms are actually pretty active. Most of them go out to sea. Occasionally, they do come ashore in Mexico, and occasionally they do make it up into the Baja area. But this particular storm is destined to die over southern Mexico. And of course, all tropical systems like this, once they start interacting with land, weaken. They lose their fuel source. And so anyway, pretty active there, but the Atlantic Basin in a year that's forecasting slightly above normal hurricanes so far starting out slow, but it is the middle part of June. I don't really expect to see a very active Atlantic Basin activity really at all until maybe about a month from now at the earliest. Thanks for watching this edition of Weather to Watch. It comes out every other day, or as the weather necessitates. Please remember to share this with your friends, subscribe to the channel, or at the very least, like what you just watched. Thanks.